What's up, guys? Welcome to the Indiana Lacrosse Channel. We're here with another coach's interview. We're here with the awesome program director, Coach Charlie Berry from Guerin. Thanks for being on the show. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, AJ. Thanks for having me on.
So, really quick, tell me a little bit about how you started with the game of lacrosse.
Yeah, man. So I was, I think I was a junior in high school. This kid I sat next to in history class was like, "Hey, man, you should come play lacrosse." And I was like, I mean, I knew what it was, but I was like, "Yeah, sure." That kid was Mike Williams. He's the former head coach of St. Joe. Been a staple at the St. Joe for a while with his twin brother Chris. Now he's the head coach at Penn. But like, we were probably the first two kids from Penn to go play at St. Joe and really bring on that club atmosphere. So he got me hooked on it, and never really looked back since.
Yeah.
He and I played together at St. Joe, and then we were great academics, and we found ourselves at Holy Cross College. We played club ball there, and then we both transferred down to IU together, and we played club ball down at IU.
Fellow MCLA man.
Yeah,
I like it. I like it.
Yep. And then he transferred back. Transferred back to South Bend and went to IUSB. Started coaching at St. Joe. He's got a twin brother, Chris, who's out in Philadelphia right now. And so they started coaching at St. Joe. I finished down at IU, and then I went, as soon as I graduated, I went back and I started coaching at St. Joe. So Mike's been a big role in my lacrosse career, but it was I walked into class one day, "You want to play?" I was like, "Yeah." I knew what it was. My dad was from New Jersey. He talked about it. I don't think he played, but he knew what it was, and he had bought us toy sticks as kids growing up, and so I kind of knew. Little did I know what it had in store for me. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
I can't, for me, because I came with the game late in life. I still love, for me, I think one of the greatest parts of the game is the learning how people fell in love with the sport, because you either get kids who like will try it out and they're like, "Oh yeah, this is really cool," and then it kind of dies fairly quickly too, and then on the other side of that coin, you get the kids who like fall in love with it and, like you said, never look back. And you get so many. I feel like I've seen so many kids who are like that, where they fall in love with it, and it's just the greatest thing. So
Yeah, and like for me, like I played other sports, right? I went to Catholic grade schools, and I switched over into public high school, and that's like your world gets flipped on your head. So you might be a great Catholic grade school athlete, but then when you go to a public high school, I went to Penn High School, there's 3,000 kids.
Yep.
Suddenly you're mediocre at best, and so like I wasn't good at football because I was small. Like I was probably over 6 feet, but maybe 120 pounds wet. So like, what am I gonna do? Played soccer, but like a lot of those kids played high-end club soccer 24/7, and so like, I was like, man, I really want to play a sport. I want to do all this stuff, but I just couldn't find it. And I think when Mike asked me, I think that was probably the fall of our junior year, and I had just had a conversation with my parents. I was like, I'm not gonna pursue soccer anymore. I'm not gonna I'm just really kind of give up on it. But I found lacrosse, and then the nice thing about it was that at that time it was so new in the state, because this is 2001. Everybody was almost at that same level. You had a couple kids that were like good. That's because they probably had played the year before and did some wall ball, but it felt like everybody was just kind of figuring it out. Because I think at that time there was maybe 8 or 12 teams, and like there was no, I don't recall a lopsided score, right? Culver wasn't what it is today. Carmel wasn't what it is today. Zionsville, these teams weren't fully established to what they were, so it was like the game was very raw. And so you felt like you had a chance. You felt like, it was the first time where if you put that hard work in, it paid off. And you mentioned when we met that, like when you went to Taylor, like you put the work in and it paid off. And that's what I felt like. That's what I loved, because it was the first time where you see where hard work does pay off. And it was rough though, I think, the first couple of years, because I didn't have coaches, right? It was high school kids, maybe their dads, or maybe they're like a recent graduate. And then even at like Holy Cross, it was like a student coach, and they're just kind of like, so they're not, their experience wasn't that great. Probably didn't get great coaching until I was playing club down at IU. We had a guy, Todd Ballard, coached Division III after he left IU. You know, so a kid that knew nothing about lacrosse and who was just dying to learn. Because when I went and played club at IU, that's the first time you saw like lacrosse outside of the state.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you knew that kids out east were playing it with like Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a Big Ten school. Chicago, Michigan, Long Island, all these kids come in. You're just like, holy cow, you guys are really good. I'm terrible.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
but like if you really want to learn, you'll do kind of whatever the coach has said, and that's kind of what it was. And then, you know, he left, and Matt Carwick, who played for Notre Dame, he was in grad school down at IU, comes down, helps out, and he wasn't much older than we were, but we put a lot in him because he played Division I, so this guy's, and he was an offensive machine, you know,
Mm-hmm.
he's great. So, but it was cool. It was, I think, starting out, just that figuring out how to play that first couple of years, just learning about the sport and learning how to play it with different coaching styles, you know.
Yeah, I get that, and I think something that I really, you kind of touched on this. An overarching theme that I kind of see is that because lacrosse is such a newer sport, we see people who are natural athletes who excel at basketball.
Mm-hmm.
You see natural athletes who excel at baseball, basketball, you know, like all of this stuff. You see these incredibly fast runners. You see these incredibly talented football players, but no one really ever plays, especially, let's just say here in Indiana, here you don't get those specific lacrosse players. Now we're starting to see that now. But like here, like I'm just going to speak here on the south side. It's like we don't have any specific. We have athletes, but we don't have lacrosse players.
Right.
And even when I was there, I don't think I would consider myself a lacrosse player to my junior senior year. I was an athlete, but I wasn't that. But you put in the work. Lacrosse is a sport where if you put in the work, you'll see those benefits.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna sound like a millennial, but you'll see that you'll see more of an instant gratification in the sport of lacrosse. I really regret that, but you see
Too late, it's out there.
Yeah, but you see almost that return sooner than you would on other sports because there's not as much talent to weed through. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and this happened actually this year at Guerin. We've probably had, you know, we've been fortunate the last couple of years to have some success. So now other athletes are taking a look at it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't want to play baseball. I don't want to run track. So you get more football players. You know, this year we have some hockey players coming out, and so these kids that come out that are, you know, they're freshmen, sophomores, new to the game, and they're playing lacrosse because it could be their first sport they played. We got a couple of those, and you know, they're getting it. But when these athletes come out from other sports, right, and then they can move and control their bodies laterally, and they can control how they change direction and all this other stuff. It's really good. It's hard sometimes if you're that newer kid where this is the first varsity sport you've played, that it can be discouraging to see some of that. So it's got its pros and its cons. I think the pros outweigh the cons. I think lacrosse is a sport where, like, you know, there's a medium to it, right? You've got to be able to control this extension of your body to stick. And until you can control that, you know, your athleticism is only going to take you so far. You know, your size and skill and or lack of size and skill is only going to take you so far until you can control that stick and control how you shoot and pick up a ground ball and stuff. You know, and lacrosse translates over. Like, I'll watch more basketball now because, like, lacrosse offense is basketball offense with a six guy. Right?
Yeah.
I'll watch, like, football, right? So, like, when I talk to football players, like, I'll take linemen, I'll take whoever. If you got a pulse, come on, let's go.
Yeah.
But if you're a football player, you know, think of yourself as like a wideout or DB or a cornerback where you've got to track a player and a moving object in the air. I mean, what better sport to do that, right? And there's nothing wrong with baseball. There's nothing wrong with track, right? You're developing a certain skill set. But I think the future of athleticism is in lacrosse is we need those crossover athletes that can do both. And I think the better football player you are, the better lacrosse player you can be, and the better lacrosse player you are, the better football player you can be. So.
Well, you see that the kids who are doing multi-sport athletes are the ones being recruited. I mean, the one that comes right off to my mind, is Miles Jones. walking on the Duke as a football player, and then ended up playing lacrosse.
Right.
But you see so many more of that. I mean, what's his face? He plays for the Patriots.
Oh yeah. Number it's like 15. He played Lax at Penn State.
Yeah, he played Lax at Penn State, and now he's playing football.
Yeah.
So, and that's one of the things I really try to encourage our kids. Is like, don't just play lacrosse. Don't just play this. Do as much. I think we're seeing less and less of the year-round athlete, and the more we need to be doing. So what happened next? So you went back after IU. You went back to coach at St. John's, correct?
St. Joe.
St. Joe.
Yeah. So once I graduated from IU, I went back, and it's my alma mater, right? So like, I graduated college in like 08, 09. So the market was doing its best to not be good,
Yep.
and so couldn't find a job for a while. I ended up working for the University of Notre Dame in their athletic department with their hockey team, which was probably like my favorite job ever. Like learning how to drive a Zamboni.
Yeah, that's so
like,
cool.
Like the operational side, not like the athletic side. It was the operational side.
Yeah.
But I was like, I'm gonna coach lacrosse, and so I went back. And the nice thing about working at Notre Dame is I think this is where like my lacrosse nerddom really took off, right? So at St. Joe, the Notre Dame's coaches, their kids played for St. Joe, right? And so they were very open. Hey, come to practice or whatever. And like, part of me was like, yeah, I don't want to get in your way. So I never really did. But then I went to Notre Dame has the coaches clinic they have every January, right? They said it again. I was like, all right, they said it again to a group of 400 people. I'm gonna try this out and let's see what it's like. And like, since I worked there, my shift would end at the rink. I'd wander on over to lacrosse practice, and like I felt like I was a stenographer, right? And like I would literally sit down, and I would never go on the field. I'd always sit in the bleachers, right? And I'd get as close as I could, and everything that like Coach Byrne or Coach Corrigan would say, I'd just scribble down as much as I could, right? As often as I could be there. And then on my way to St. Joe practice, right, I'm trying to like decipher, right, this is high-end, East Coast, very talented players, and then now I've got to break this down. What's the fundamental element that they were trying to teach right there, and then try to apply that to high school kids. And then Notre Dame has their channel, right? So like practice is over, I go home and I get on that channel, or I get on YouTube. YouTube's like it could be the greatest tool for you, because like, I know you got a channel, but like you can literally like, you want to know how to do a 10-man ride? YouTube. You want to know how to run a certain drill on stick work? It's like the silent coach. I feel like I'm gonna start listening to YouTube as my assistant coach sometimes, because like even now, like it's like man, like we do a lot and we try to be original on our drills, but sometimes you gotta cheat, right? And take somebody else's drill. I'm not, so. But being at St. Joe, I was there for like 2 years, and just nerddom, right? So if I wasn't playing it, because I played Empire Lacrosse, started the men's league, so I would drive down from South Bend on weekends, play for like 2 hours in that league. I'd probably come down on a Saturday night, hang out with some friends, and then try to play the next day. Or if St. Joe had a game, I'd try to stay down. But it was nerddom, right? If I could play, I was going to play, right? If I could coach, I wanted to coach. And if I could research it, right? I was going to research it. And like I went to the lacrosse conventions anytime I could, out in Baltimore, Philadelphia. Notre Dame's one. Just whatever I could do to make myself. It's almost like I'm a journeyman. I don't want to say that. That's might be an insult to journeyman, but like I invested a lot of time, because like I didn't have great coaching until I was in college, right? And so I feel like I still feel like I had this void of developmental coaching that like I've got to make up for, and I've got to figure it out. And like, whether currently if it's listening to a podcast or doing this with you, like there's something to get better every single day.
Yeah, and I think that's really important, not only to for yourself, for you to get better, because that's something that I'm currently challenged at, like starting this whole YouTube channel. I mean, if there's anything I've learned in this air quotes season of my coaching career, it's just that I'm not as good as a coach as I thought I was. My first season coaching club, like I was gifted with like very talented kids, and just doing club ball over at Hoosier, and I was like, oh man, like we won like a lot of these games against decent teams, I mean, not amazing, but it was a good group of kids who knew how to catch and throw. And from coming from playing lacrosse at Taylor, where every year we were starting to teach kids, like half our team were walk-ons. So it's
Right.
like you do that half your season teaching, and so as soon as I come out coaching and like everyone can catch and throw, oh my gosh, like you guys are amazing.
Yeah.
And I thought I was a lot better of a coach than I was, and then coming and just learning, there's just so many new problems. And so for me, not only selfishly starting this YouTube program is to start building relationships like with you or whomever, to better myself, to better my knowledge, to be around people who have more knowledge than me, and to motivate me to be able to be better. But I think that's something that as coaches we need to be doing to inspire our kids that, hey, look, I'm doing better to be a better coach. There's stuff that you guys can be doing as well. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
I'm not going to practice and I get better as a coach at practice. We're trying to do stuff outside, podcasts, and we're watching YouTube videos. I mean, like the Notre Dame channel is like you said, I mean, it's like the greatest thing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% there with you. I think, we ask these kids wall ball, lift weights,
Mm-hmm.
do whatever. I think we as coaches, like, if we're going to ask them to do it, we've got to hold ourselves accountable to do
Right.
the same thing, right? We owe it to them, right? Because I'm not an expert at this game, right? And, like, I'll go to the Notre Dame coaches clinic. I'll go, my family lives up there, so it's a cheap excuse. Hey, I'm here to see you,
Right.
but really I'm at the... But, like, I've gone to it, and, like, they've changed the format of it a couple times, but, like, they teach probably the same topics every year. I wouldn't call it the same topics, but I've always learned something new, right? Man, I didn't catch that when that was talked about before. They have like they rotate topics, but like I didn't catch that last time. And I think back to my first year of coaching, it's similar to you. I think the first like year or two are probably the hardest, right? So I hired a new coach this year at Guerin, and like he played in high school, he played club in college at Dayton.
Okay.
And I told him upright, I was like, this is going to be your hardest. First year, 2 years, going to be your hardest. Because one, you're going to want the kids to like you, right?
Yep.
And you can't do that. And two, right, things that you've done naturally, organically, you've got to stop and think about. And how would I explain this, right?
Yep.
And kids today, right, they don't learn the same way. Like I learned that from like a guy yelling at me, like an old school coaching, right? But kids today, you've got visual learners, you got auditorial learners, you got kids you got to walk through it.
Yep.
Kids that like they get it, but like they have to do it themselves, and so like you just can't. You've got to figure out the best way to have that best relationship with that player. Like build that relationship with like, all right, Timmy, we've walked through this on a chalkboard. We've used the balls to kind of figure it out, and like figuring out as a new coach of the best avenue to get there is like, that's probably like 90% of the battle. Like, how do I teach what you know? Because it's not important what you know, it's important what the kids know.
Right.
And how you get that across is like so huge. And I'll give you an example of how we break that down, right? What are kids always on? Social media, right? So you have a podcast or a YouTube channel. I created like a private Guerin Catholic YouTube channel, and what I'll do if we're doing a new drill in practice, I'll draw it up on a whiteboard, teach through it, and I'll just send it out to the group. And so like they're on their phones already. They're probably on YouTube or something stupid during school hours, right? But think about it. You're approaching them on their medium, on their terms, right? And I shared that with the new coach. He's like, oh yeah, I never thought about doing that. I was like, mind blown,
Yeah.
And then you show up at practice. Now you taught a drill. You've saved 10 minutes because now you don't have to explain it in practice. And this isn't my idea. I'm definitely stealing this idea of using YouTube and other stuff like that. But like, you hear somebody do it, like, yeah, I'll totally do that. But then when you sit down and you use your phone and like, oh, this takes like 10 minutes to do this. Oh, sweet. But yeah, no, I mean, that first couple of years are tough, and being a nerd about it is the best way to go about it. We, like I said, we owe it to these kids. If we're going to demand that they do wall ball and demand that they have practice and do film, the least we should do as coaches is try to make ourselves better, right?
Yeah.
Just because we played in college, 10, 15 years ago or 20 years ago, depending on how old you are as a coach, and just because we have the title coach in front of our name doesn't mean that we know all and everything.
Yep.
And we have to, as coaches, we have to get better every day by improving ourselves.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's less about, your experiences now, and it's more about consuming information. Like I said, like that's been my big, I think my realization as a coach is now I'm going less from what I know and saying, well, why can't you do it like I'm doing it, like how I can do it? Why don't you be like me and say, all right, well, one, actually, one of the best pieces of coaching advice I ever got was your kids can do what you're asking them to do. You're just not communicating it well enough.
Right.
Find a different way. You can say it to them 1,000 times and they still won't get it. Well, find another 1,001, 1,002.
Right.
And keep going.
100%.
They'll figure it out, but you just got to figure out that way to do it.
100%.
And so that's really changed my mind. I'm like, okay, well, I need to stop yelling and throwing a hissy fit and find a different way, phrase it a different way or whatever so that it clicks. And then on top of that, as now, for me, it's like I gotta watch more tape. I have to listen to other coaches. I want to. That I didn't know about that podcast, and so like that's for me. I'm gonna go home and like binge so much of it. So tell me a little bit more about, because obviously you weren't at Guerin.
No.
So what led you up to Guerin or
That's like part two of the story. So the first part is, playing the traditional route. You played high school, college, you come back and coach, right? Well, I graduated from school. The economy wasn't that great. Student loans came due, and I enlisted in the military, right? So probably at my youngest, actually not my youngest, I was 26 when I joined the military.
Okay.
I wanted my student debt paid off. I took like an active step away from the game for 4 years, right? I'm gone. I would watch what I could on YouTube on deployments if I was overseas. I was stationed at Fort Bragg in North Carolina. There was a Fort Bragg team that like I played on, but not like consistently, because when you're in the military, for me and for what I did, 12, 14, 16-hour days, if I'm not in the field, like I wanted the Saturdays and Sundays with my wife, right? Or, if she split time between Indianapolis and Fort Bragg, if she wasn't there, I was probably like vegged out on my couch, just like trying to recover from the week or get ready for the week. But that 4 years, I still try to find value in that, because even though I wasn't playing lacrosse, I was still paying attention. Like I was looking at how non-commissioned officers, sergeants, staff sergeants, how are they leading? How are they teaching stuff, right? I had exposure to, we had the opportunity to work with special forces and train with special forces and see how they taught and stuff. So like I'm always like learning how people are doing stuff, right? And then I learned how to like organize a plan, organize an idea, and how to like take a big picture. And so even though I wasn't doing lacrosse, I felt all those life skills that I learned were translatable back into lacrosse, right?
Oh, for sure, 100%.
And so coming back into lacrosse, so like I did 4 years. I actually, I knew I was getting out of the Army. This was 2014, 2015. Knew I was getting out. And so I was like, I'm getting out. My awesome wife, Erin, she had moved back to Indianapolis. So we knew that this is where our end state was going to be, right? And so I hopped on Lax Power when that existed. Bring back Lax Power.
Yeah, seriously.
And I hopped on the Indiana High School Lacrosse Association, and I saw what jobs were open. And at that time, there were 2 jobs that were open. 2. HSC was looking for an assistant coach, and Guerin Catholic was looking for, I think, a head coach and an assistant coach. So on my second deployment, I had a lot of downtime, not a lot of downtime, but in my downtime, I created like a lacrosse resume. I compiled everything I did and everybody that I coached for, and like if I won any awards, and I shot this resume out, and I never heard back from Guerin Catholic for like a while, right? I heard back from Scott Beasley, who was, I think, his first or second year at Hamilton Southeastern. He emailed me, and he's like, well, when can we meet for an interview? And I was like, so I'm on the other side of the world. You mind doing like a Skype interview? So like literally, Scott and I had a Skype interview. And like he's, here, and I'm wearing, Army stuff, and I think I just gotten back from a mission, so I'm like taking all this crap off, and we're talking, and and Scott's telling me his vision, his mission for HSC, and I bought in. I was hooked. I was like,
Yeah.
let's go. Like Scott, I love the opportunity. I'd love to help out, and I want to be a part of that. 100% want to be a part of that. And I screwed up because I gave him hard dates. Right, when you work with the government and the military, like don't give hard dates. Don't ever give hard dates. I gave Scott some hard dates, and this is I should be back by this time. I can start on this time. And he's like, all right, well, we'll figure it out when you get back. No big deal. The Army does Army things. And after I committed to Scott, they're like, hey, we're not sure about your orders. We're not sure when you're going to get out. We know that your contract's up, but we don't know how, we don't know the timing of you getting out yet. And I felt bad because the projected time that the Army gave me wasn't going to line up with what I told Scott. And I didn't want to make Scott wait. I didn't want to make HSC wait. I was like, I can't. So I sent him an email. I was like, hey man, here's what's going on. I don't know if I can keep my word here, and I don't want to leave you in a lurch where like, hey, I'm going to be back at this date, but I don't show up till. At that point, I didn't know when I was going to get out of the Army, even though like my contract had a date. I didn't know when I was going to get out, and I didn't want to leave you in a lurch. If you can fill this position, go ahead. And if the opportunity opens up, I might reach back out. So Scott moved on, and he's done great things. I think when I look at HSC, and after having that, I remember having that conversation with him to where they're at today. Like he has followed through on his vision that he had when I was in the Army to where they're at today. It just gives me hope.
Yeah.
Scott and I roomed this past summer at Ohio State, and we talked about our programs, kind of comparing notes, where we're at, because he's 5 or 6 years into it, and I'm going into year 3, and we're just trying to see where everybody's lining up. And like, it's just, seeing Scott do it, a young coach, from Indiana, played in Indiana, like a young coach, it gives me hope. It's like, man, I can do this too. But so, backed out from HSC, everything happens for a reason, and I think after I backed out, it might have been 2 or 3 weeks. I don't know. It felt like every day when you're on deployment feels like a Wednesday.
Jeez.
And so like, I don't know what it was, but like Garen finally reached out. It was an assistant position. In that time frame, the Army had figured themselves out, and they gave me like a date. They gave me paperwork that says, here's your date that you're out of the Army. I think I did reach out to Scott. I think he had filled the position already. And so, same thing. I emailed the Garen, the new, he was new too, the current head coach at Garen. He and I had some conversations, and I came home from a deployment, got out of the Army. I showed up. I went from possibly being late to showing up to like, Garen had a team meeting like January 7th, and I wasn't supposed to be there till like February, but I showed up. I was there like 3 weeks early, so did 2 years there as an assistant, and head coach now. It was like a blank slate, and you can kind of do whatever you want. And I think one of the things that I did, or that we did early on, was we developed a mission statement for the lacrosse program. And like everybody says, have a mission statement. The school has one. I've seen other mission statements for other high schools that are just super long, and we sat down with the team and we're like, we need a mission statement. What are we doing out here, right? What we just can't come like, we want to play lacrosse, January to May, and this is what we're going to do. Let's figure out who we are. So we defined success was. We defined, who we wanted to be, what we wanted to be known for, and then we made a mission statement, and we wanted to keep it short and repeatable, right? So, it's kind of like our core values, where if we find ourselves in a lurch, or if like we stray away from what we're doing, think back to the mission statement, right? And so the first thing we did was, and even me as head coach when I took over, is like, we got to live up to this mission statement. And it's, we want to reach our maximum potential through faith, hustle, and discipline, right? And that's our mission statement, right? You got to have faith, obviously in God, but you got to have faith in the players that are around you. You got to have faith in your coaching staff. You got to have faith in the system. And you got to have faith in your friends and family, right? Discipline, right? You've got to do the right thing when nobody's looking, right? You've got to do what's asked of you, whether it's in school, on the field, by your parents. Just do the right thing and hustle, right? We want you to work hard in and out of the classroom, on and off the field, in your relationships with yourself, with God, with your family, with your friends. We want you to work hard in that, right? Because if you take the lacrosse out of it, AJ can reach his true self by having faith, by being disciplined, by working hard, right? Those are 3 great values that'll carry you beyond just the lacrosse world, right? So we spent some time on that, right? So we got a mission statement. I think the first thing, when I became head coach was I need to have a vision. What do I want this program to be, right? In the Army, we have, leave it better than you found it. So if I want to leave Guerin better than what I found it, what does that vision look like? So I sat down and I created a 1, 3, and 5-year plan, right? Just to kind of give us some orientation. And then, but it's kind of twofold, right? One, I want to provide the best high school lacrosse experience I can, right? Whether it's taking the kids paintballing, right? If we can get a team trip to go to St. Louis, let's go to St. Louis on a team trip on a bus, right? If it's, in the summertime, we take the boys to Notre Dame and Ohio State for team camps, right? Let's just give them the best. Let's take winning and losing out of it, and let's just give them the best high school experience, right? Because winning and losing then becomes a byproduct, right? And once you have that, this is the best experience, this is our mission statement, then you can kind of look at, all right, we want to be, do we want to be just another team in Indiana? And I define team as a group of kids that get together in January and play through May, right? And that's it, that's their team, right? Or do we want to be a program in Indiana where I provide something year-round? Once the season's over, we'll take a break 6 weeks in the summer, take a break 6 weeks in the fall, and we'll pick it back up, right? Are we a program, right? Well, yeah, we want to be a program. And then once we're an established program, the vision is let's be a program recognized not only within Indiana, but that's why we play teams from Missouri, right? That's why we play teams from Chicago. We want to be known outside of this. So having a mission statement, key. Having a vision has really driven it. And I think the last thing is giving the boys a form of ownership, accountability, whatever you want to call it. These boys, what we do to give them that control is we want to give them an identity and some goals. So we'll meet and we'll have them, I'll give them the schedule, write on the board, the whiteboard, and they're like, all right, go through, look at the schedule, circle the games that you guys deem to be most important, and captains will run this. Write down, 5 to 7 measurable goals that you guys want to accomplish this year. So that's going on the board in the front room, and we'll sneak in the classrooms. On the sideboard, this was kind of a big risk, and it's worked out, I think, every year that we've done it. I was like, on this board, draw your identity, draw what you want to be, right? Because a mission statement's never going to change. Your vision's probably always going to be your vision. You're always going to revisit. But a team's identity will kind of change. That'll change the most from year to year because kids will graduate. Kids will not play. And so you lose part of that team. There's only going to be one 2019 team.
Right.
So what do you want to be? So I had them, I was like, this is Pictionary, right? Draw up here what you guys want to be, right? And we'll walk through it. And when we look at our goals, we'll use your vision and our goals together. And they want to be, kind of a hardworking team that plays as a family. And they drew all this stuff up there. They want to be like a family. They want to be hardworking. There's a lot of stuff, but again, you're trusting high school kids with a dry erase marker and a whiteboard. And we're not in the room. Coaches aren't in the room. We were in the hallway. We gave them a half hour. We were in the hallway. We were putting the decals on the helmets, right? And so this is senior and captain led. You create your identity for what you want to do. So now we've got a mission statement. We've got the visualization, which are coach driven a little bit. But the team identity, the team outcome, you put that in their hands because they're the ones that have the most control over that, right? They're the ones that are going to be like, we can control if we win or lose this game. We can control if we meet these goals that are gradient steps. And we can control if we are that hardworking team or not. So, and a lot of it comes back to how often we visit that. I'll ask the boys every day, scale out 1 out of 10. Where do you think you guys are at today? And we'll get 9s and 10s some days, but we'll also get some 3s and 4s some days, right? Keep them accountable to that, and I'll remind them, here's what you guys want to be. Do you guys think you lived up to that, right? Here's our mission statement. Do we live up to our mission statement today, the mission statement the boys got to help in with a little bit, right? Because there were lots of things that they had said, but like that's kind of a coach-driven thing, right? And you hold them accountable to it, right? Like I'll ask kids, we break down in practice, like what's the mission statement, right? So they know it, right? The vision's mostly a you thing, right? Whatever you and Coach Cross wanted to be, that's a you thing. But the more ways you can add accountability to them, the better off it is, and then you don't bend on it, right?
Yeah.
So a great example is you miss practice, you miss a quarter of a game, right? And like there's certain things, again, Catholic school, so we've got confirmation.
Right.
There's usually religious events, school sponsor stuff. We got some choir kids and we got some band kids too, and like so I get a lot of that, but like holding them accountable and then never bending from that.
Yeah.
Right? And like when you identify a mission and what the team wants to be, you're going to get a core group of kids that are just going to do it no matter what, right? And you have some kids that look at it as a seasonal sport. Well, it's springtime. I'm going to play lacrosse. You always have that. Like you get football players. Like it's football. Like, I got to play football right now. But I think back to when I took over as head coach. My first meeting was not. Athletic director told me I was going to be head coach. I said, how soon can I meet with you, the principal, and Garen's there's a president of a board, like a foundation. How soon can I meet with all three of you at one time? And I met with those guys because I wanted to know what is your view of the program, right? And then how can I, if it's negative, how can I change that? And what are you expecting of not just me as a coach, but of us as a program, right? And so once you know kind of what admin's looking at coming down and then what you want to do from the bottom up, and you just drive that accountability, right? It's crazy. It's like, oh, I missed practice, so it's a quarter of a game, right? But like, you'd be surprised, like a quarter of a game, to some boys, like they just live to play, right?
Yeah.
And like, I'll get, emails and parents calling and contact with players. Coach, I'm going to be late today. I don't want to miss because they want to play. So having that clear-cut accountability and even having that clear-cut accountability, on the field, like if you're doing a drill, hey, this is a right-handed drill or this is a left-handed drill. If you're not doing it, get out, right? The biggest problem is like a kind of fast break shot, like certain parts that's got to be left-handed, right? And if a kid doesn't do it, bench, and it doesn't matter who it is. It could be your star player, and he could have had a mental gaffe, right? Not my right mental space, right? Don't care. Go over there, right? And you got to hold. It's hard. It's really hard. Because is the kid gonna pout? Am I being too hard? Do I let it go? Do I let it go one more time? See if he does it again. But if you let it go one more time, there's some other kid that saw it too, and he's like, "Well, coach let it slide this one time. So when I go out there, I'm gonna try to see if I can get away with it." They're not gonna consciously.
Right, but
like they notice and they perceive these things, right?
So
having the ability to hold them accountable, and like, but share as much of that as possible with them, right? I mean, like, here's what we're looking from you, and like, we use mass punishment, right? A lot, not a lot. That's a bad phrase. We'll use mass punishment, right? And so like, discipline's probably the easiest thing that you can fix, right? So we just started using locker rooms this year, okay? And it's like our home now, and like. But like the rule was, without locker room, your bags are closed, they're zipped up, lined up, your spare stick is lined up in front of it. And if it wasn't to that way, right, everybody else had to run, well, that young man had to fix his stuff. And coach just said like, oh, the bag's open. He didn't have to come with like, I would dump out the bag and throw it all over the field. And these kids are doing 4 stops or suicides or whatever, but like kids will buy into that because like it becomes more of, and grades. I get a grade report. Hey, so and so kids are below the GPA, so that's how much we're gonna run, right? You build those gradient steps and you control all that. Like kids that want to be there and be good will stay and play, right? Kids that like, they're playing a spring sport because their fall sport asked them to, or their parents are making them, or their heart's really not in it. Like once you take that and impose some of those steps, some of those accountability measures, and they'll kind of
Yeah.
slip away. And the flip side, you got to hold kids accountable. You got to do good stuff too. So players of the game, practice players of the week. We do stuff like that. So accountability's got to. It's easy to focus on. Well, Timmy, you didn't do it, but it's also really good. Timmy, hey man, you nailed the fast breaks in our game. You won 3 faceoffs for us, or whatever it is. Here's the game ball. Like it goes both ways, and like the more that you can reward and consequence in a fair manner and be fair about it, I think, you'll see kids coming in, and it's a process, right? It's a huge. Like this is my 5th year at Guerin, so like we've had complete turnover, but for the juniors, they've only known me as the head coach, right? The seniors still remember the last head coach, and you can see it within classes, that shift. Like they know Coach Barry this is what he wants, and other coaches, sometimes you're getting compared to, well, the last head coach didn't do that, and you're like, well, he's like the person's not here anymore.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
I find that very interesting because I tried to be more disciplined because I implemented this rule this year of here's my line of the field. You don't cross it unless you're fully strapped with all your gloves and stuff on. Because we had guys who would run out,
yeah, they're getting
whatever, they're throwing stuff on.
not whistle ready, right?
Right, they're not whistle ready, and so I did that in this line, and it's like, man, it's like trying to herd sheep.
Yeah.
And I call this player, get back here and do it, even if he's got to put one glove on or he's already got it on. I make him come back anyways. I mean, we don't have a feeder program. We have a small, we're not probably going to see kids who picked up a stick before high school, for another 3 or 4, probably 5 years down the line. And so we're picking up a lot of sophomores who want to play. But then again, like we lose like 3 seniors because Coach AJ, and I've had the stigma as I'm the hard coach, I'm the bad coach.
It's not a bad stigma to have, right? Remember,
right.
You're not there to be their friend, right? You're there to be their coach, right? I can feel you being the assistant coach, and like, because you've got this, and it's something as a head coach, I struggle with, because I have this vision of what I want the program to be. Like, do my assistant coach share that vision, right? Because I'm willing to bet, and it's nothing against them. My assistant coaches are great, but some of them are coaches. They're all coaches. Some of them are dads. Some of them are just volunteers. Some of them, I hired. But like, they probably have a vision of what they want, and where does it like overlap, right? And so. We talk about that all the time. We spend a lot of time. What page are we on? We all got to be on the same page. And like we've got email chains. I go to my phone. I bet you there's a couple. We talk a lot. We've got group chats, and so we know where everybody's at. But one of the things that we talked through, and coaches at Lehigh, I forget what his name is, Coach Cassis. He has a piece out there, like it's on YouTube. It talks about standards and expectations, right? So a standard is if you walked in this door dressed in your lacrosse uniform, right? Your standard is this is how you're going to wear it, right? Your white socks, gray undershirt is the standard, right? No effort to meet the standard, none whatsoever, right? 15 minutes early, if you're doing film, you'll have a notebook. That's a standard, right? An expectation then is something like that's where you weed kids out, right? With the expectation that this is a righty shot or this is a lefty shot. Or maybe we don't bull dodge. I don't know. Maybe we don't bull dodge. Like those are, so defining those of what you expect out of those, and then having a clear communication with everybody. We meet for 2 hours, right? But, we list practices for 2 hours, right? But our first 20 minutes is probably film or a team meeting of some sort. And like, we don't want to paralysis through analysis with film. I mean, they've been in school all day. They don't need another hour worth of film. But if we can break up film, we're playing so-and-so, or this is practice from yesterday.
Right.
If we can show them little bits here and there, but like that half hour when we meet as a team and we can go through the standards or the expectations of a drill of an offense that we're going to do. If we can go through all of that stuff, so when the kids go out there in the field, so we're out there for an hour and a half, no water breaks, not that Coach Barry's hard, but we got a couple managers, right? They sit in the press box and talk about stuff, and like you can fill some water up, and we don't have to stop as a practice. We kind of keep going through. But what we see is that because we take the time to meet, we're clear with what we want accountability-wise, And then when we execute it in an hour-and-a-half game plan, there's not a lot of standing around, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think what grinds my gears now is like, I took out water breaks, but now we're losing time because we're doing ball walks, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so to get the culture that you want, it's got to be, it's not one big step. You just can't meet as a coaching staff and meet with the seniors and meet with the captains, you know, tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And like, here's what we're going to do. It's, you've got to take several gradient steps to get you where you want to be. And, excuse me, and it's just this long process of, you know, excuse me, it may take 6 months for us to get to here. It may take us, you said 5 years, so you have like feeder kids coming in. You know, it may take you that long to get there, but as long as you're taking a step every day, whether it's using film or whatever, every day to get a little bit better and get closer to that vision, living up that mission statement, completing your vision, and remaining true to the identity of the team, take those little steps to get there, right? Eventually you're going to wake up one day and you're going to be like, holy cow, we're here, you know? Or the season will come to an end and you're like, man, we did it. You know, it could be whatever your goal is, right? Whether it's whatever, right? We did it, right? And it's not, but when you think about the year and you think about what you've done, it's not because of one, it could be because of one play, but it's not because of what they did on the field. It's probably all the stuff you did off the field, right? As a head coach, I probably spend 75, 80% of my time working off the field and 20 to 25% in practice, on the sidelines, like, because there's a lot, you know, there's a lot of things out there that like practice planning, reviewing film, talking with administration, talking with other administrations, talking with parents. Like there's a lot that like you lose in a day working on all that stuff, you know?
Yeah.
I just try to take every day, take those small little steps, and one day you'll find yourself there. And I think the other thing too about those gradient steps is you got to give something. You know, having all this stuff is great, but you got to give something the boys something to compete for, to fight for. And you look at schools. You can go to a lot of great schools in Indianapolis for whatever sport, whatever academic thing you want to be. Right. Some schools are known for football. Right? Some schools are known for basketball, soccer, and lacrosse, right? And they're known for that. So parents are going to send their kids to that, right? And I think when parents do, that's fine. I think that, you know, those schools are adding on to the legacy, so you know their statistics. One of the things we tell our boys is that we're writing our own story. We're writing our legacy. Every time we play a game, we're defining another chapter in our book, right? And I tell the boys, we're on like chapter 5. We can't get caught up on somebody's chapter 20 of where they're at. We're exactly where we need to be at in our story right now, every day. And, but if you give them that, right, this is your story. You're creating, you know, Roncalli Lacrosse, boys and girls. You're the cornerstone of that piece. And in the big picture, you're going to be a part of the story for the long term, you know? There's a lot of schools where they're looking to add on to another championship, right? Or maybe they want to be a repeat winner, or maybe they want to win their second one, whatever it is, right? But like giving them the perspective that like this is your own and you're writing this, stuff about accountability and kids, you know, man, coach is such a jerk. Like once they understand it, like it's them, that stuff kind of falls away. And like I said it earlier, like you're going to get that core group of kids that believes it, and you always have those fringe players that are just, they're there because mom and dad or coach from another sport says they got to be there, you know, so I don't know. I talk a lot, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I mean, if anything, I'm pulling a lot away from it. But so that's all the time we have for today. I want to thank you for being on the show. Guys, make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to see more awesome content, and hopefully we'll see you guys more in the future.
Yeah.
Guys, my goal is to grow the sport of lacrosse in Indiana, and I can't do it without you guys. So make sure you're sharing it with anybody and everyone. And until next time, I'll see you guys later.